The lecture hall was massive. It could hold over 300 students from across 12 star systems. Tall Torvan warriors sat in the front rows. Their blue skin and forearms made them look powerful and dangerous. Behind them sat the insect-like Selvari, with their clicking mandibles and compound eyes. Scattered throughout were the gray-skinned Kethvari, once the most feared warriors in the galaxy, and in the very back row, almost invisible among these giants, sat a human woman. Her name was Elena Vance. She was 34 years old, with short brown hair and tired eyes. She wore the simple uniform of a student, nothing more. No medals, no rank insignia. Just another face in the crowd. The other students barely noticed her. Humans were considered a young species. They lived short lives. They were emotional and fragile. Most aliens thought she was there because of some diplomatic program, a courtesy. Nothing important. Alina liked it that way. The instructor was a Torvan named Professor Keth. He stood at the front of the hall, his forearms moving as he spoke about military history. Today we discussed the Battle of Crimson Nebula, he said. One of the most complex naval engagements in galactic history. The defending fleet was outnumbered 5-1. They had no reinforcements coming. Their communications were jammed. By all logic, they should have been destroyed. He touched a control panel, and a holographic display appeared. It showed hundreds of ships in formation. I want someone to tell me how the defenders survived. What tactical solution could possibly work in this situation? Hands went up across the room. Torvan students spoke about aggressive counterattacks. Selvari students suggested retreat patterns. Kethvari students recommended targeting enemy command ships. Professor Keth rejected each answer with a shake of his head. You are all thinking like warriors, he said. You see ships and weapons. You do not see the truth. Silence fell over the hall. No one else raised their hand. Then a quiet voice came from the back row. They did nothing. Every head turned. 300 aliens stared at the small human woman, who had barely spoken a word in 6 months of classes. Professor Keth tilted his head. Explain. Alina did not stand. She did not raise her voice. She simply spoke. The attacking fleet expected resistance. Their entire strategy depended on the defenders making a move. Any move. But the defenders went completely silent. They powered down weapons. They stopped all communications. They drifted like dead ships. She paused. The attackers grew confused. They suspected a trap. They waited. And while they waited, their fuel ran low. Their crews grew restless. Small fights broke out between allied ships who did not trust each other. After 9 days, the attacking fleet broke apart on its own. The defenders never fired a single shot. The lecture hall was completely silent. Professor Keth stared at her for a long moment. That information is not in any textbook available to students. Alina shrugged. I read a lot. She said nothing more. The lecture continued, but many eyes kept drifting back to the quiet human in the back row. After class, the halls emptied quickly. Alina walked alone toward the dormitories. She preferred it this way. Fewer questions. Fewer complications. But someone was watching her. His name was Zorith. He was an old Kethvari warrior, gray and scarred, who now worked as a maintenance technician at the academy. He had fought in 3 wars. He had killed more enemies than he could count, and he had learned to recognize dangerous people. The human woman was dangerous. He had noticed it on her first day, the way she watched exits, the way she counted guards without seeming to look at them, the way she read tactical displays when she thought no one was paying attention. Zoroth had seen soldiers before. He had seen killers, but this woman was something different. That night, he searched through old military records. Most were classified, but he had friends who owed him favors. He searched for hours until he found something that made his blood run cold. A single photograph. A young human woman standing in the ruins of a conquered fortress. The caption read, Commander Alina Vance, following the liberation of Malachor Station. The 17-year siege of Malachor. Zorith remembered it well. An impossible situation. a massive enemy fleet surrounding a small human colony. Everyone expected the humans to be slaughtered. Instead, the siege ended without a single battle. The enemy fleet simply surrendered. All of them. Over 10,000 soldiers laid down their weapons and walked away. No one knew how. The records were sealed. The commander who achieved this impossible victory disappeared from public life. Until Nozorith looked toward the dormitory where the quiet human students slept. He understood now why she hid. A weapon like her was too valuable, too dangerous. Everyone would want to use her or destroy her, so she became invisible. The next morning, Alina sat in her usual spot in the back row. The class was practicing tactical simulations. Teams of students competed against computer-generated enemies. Elena's team lost. She had barely participated. A Torvan student laughed at her. "Humans should stick to farming," he said. "Leave war to real species." Elena said nothing. She simply smiled and returned to her notes. But something was wrong. The simulation screens flickered. The lights dimmed for a moment. Then every door in the building locked with a heavy thunk. Alarms began to scream. Armed soldiers poured into the lecture hall. They wore black armor with no insignia. Their weapons were pointed at the students. "Nobody moves," the lead soldier shouted. "You are now hostages of the Void Covenant. Cooperate, and you might live." Panic erupted. Students screamed. Some tried to run and were knocked down. Alina did not move. She did not scream. She sat perfectly still in the back row and watched everything with calm. Steady eyes, she counted the exits. 17. She counted the soldiers. 40-2, she calculated. How long before galactic authorities responded? At least 6 hours. And she knew something the terrorists did not know. She knew that they had made a terrible mistake. They thought they had captured ordinary students. They were wrong. Alina whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. 17 exits. 42 hostiles. 3 hours until they realize who I am, and she waited. The final commander had work to do. She sat quietly in the back. Robot, the galaxy knew. Her, as the final commander, Part 2, The Ghost Awakens. The broadcast went out across every channel in the system. A masked terrorist stood before a camera. Behind him, 300 students knelt on the floor with their hands on their heads. Armed guards walked between them. "We are the Void Covenant," the terrorist announced. "We demand the release of our leader from Galactic Prison 7. You have 6 hours. For every hour you delay, we will execute one student. Starting now." He grabbed a young Selvari student and dragged her forward. Across the galaxy, military commanders watched helplessly. The Academy's shields prevented any rescue attempt. Negotiators tried to make contact, but the Void Covenant refused to talk. Inside the lecture hall, Lena Vance sat very still. She had been in situations like this before. Not exactly like this, but close enough. She knew how these things worked. The terrorists were nervous. Their plan depended on fear. If they lost control of the fear, they lost everything. Alina began to move. Not obviously. Not quickly. She simply shifted position, inch by inch, until she was near a group of younger students. A Selvari named Ithris, a pair of Torvan twins, a frightened human boy who could not stop shaking. "Listen to me," Alina whispered. Her voice was so soft that only they could hear. "Do exactly what I say. Nod if you understand." They nodded. "When the guard passes, I need you to start crying. Loudly. Draw attention to yourselves." Thres's compound eyes widened. "Why?" "Because I need 30 seconds where no one is watching me." The guard approached. Ithris began to wail. The Torvan twins joined in. The human boy did not have to pretend. Every terrorist in the room looked toward the noise. Alina moved. She crossed 15 feet in complete silence. Her hands found a power junction on the wall. She pressed 3 buttons in a specific sequence. Then she was back in her original position before anyone noticed she had moved. The lights flickered. One of the terrorists cursed. "What was that?" "Nothing," another said. "Old building. Bad wiring." It was not nothing. Alina had just disabled the internal communication system. Now the terrorists could not coordinate between rooms. They would have to shout or use hand signals. Over the next hour, Alina continued her work. She bumped into a guard and apologized profusely. He shoved her away without realizing she had taken the power cell from his backup weapon. She asked permission to use the bathroom. A guard escorted her. When she returned, she walked a slightly different route. Nobody noticed that she had memorized the position of every enemy soldier in the building. She whispered instructions to different groups of students. Small tasks. Simple things. When I give the signal, ask the guard for water. Pretend to faint in exactly 10 minutes. Start arguing with your neighbor about something stupid. Each task created a small distraction. Each distraction gave Alina a few more seconds to work. The terrorist leader grew frustrated. His soldiers reported strange problems. Equipment failed for no reason. Guards heard footsteps in empty hallways. Everyone blamed everyone else in the maintenance tunnels beneath the academy. Zorath crawled through darkness. He had been off duty when the attack began. He had escaped through a service hatch before the terrorists sealed the building. Now, he was trying to reach external communications. But first, he had to see something for himself. He found a ventilation grate that looked down into the lecture hall. He positioned himself carefully and watched. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just frightened students and angry terrorists. Then he noticed Alina. She was not frightened. She was not even tense. She sat in the back row with perfect calm, her eyes moving constantly, watching everything. And every few minutes, something would happen. A distraction, a malfunction, small piece of chaos. Zorath had seen generals command armies. He had watched admirals coordinate fleets. But he had never seen anything like this. Alina was fighting a war that only she could see. She was winning. He continued toward the communications center, inside the lecture hall. Ithris finally understood what was happening. She was young, barely 20 cycles old. She had come to the academy to learn military strategy. She thought she knew what war looked like. She was wrong. War was not ships and weapons. War was the quiet human woman who had not raised her voice once. War was patience and observation and small movements that added up to something enormous. HRs crawled toward Alina during a shift change. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Who are you?" Alina looked at her with tired eyes. "I am nobody, just a student." "That is a lie." Alina almost smiled. "Yes, it is." "Will you tell me the truth?" Alina was quiet for a moment. Then she asked a question instead of answering. "Do you trust me?" Ithris thought about everything she had seen. The calm in the middle of chaos. The small miracles that kept happening. The way Alina moved like water flowing around stones. Ithris said, "I do not know why, but yes." "Good. Then trust me a little longer. This will be over soon." Outside the building, Zorath finally reached the communication center. The terrorists had not bothered to guard it properly. They thought the building's shields blocked all signals. They were wrong about that too. Zorath sent a message to the Galactic Fleet. Then he received a message back from inside the building. From Alina, it contained a single instruction. Tell them to hold. Give me 2 more hours. Zorath stared at the message. 2 more hours. Terrorists would start killing students in 2 more hours. But he remembered Malachor. He remembered the impossible victory that no one could explain. He sent the message to the fleet. Hold position. Do not engage. Inside the lecture hall, the terrorist leader received an encrypted transmission. His face went pale beneath his mask. His hands began to shake. He walked through the rows of students, staring at each one. Humans. He was looking at the humans. Finally, he stopped in the center of the room. His voice echoed off the walls. "I've just received some very interesting information," he said. "It seems we have a celebrity among us. Someone very special. No, someone very dangerous." Alina did not react. She kept her face blank. The terrorist leader smiled beneath his mask. It was not a pleasant smile. "Which one of you?" he demanded, his voice rising. "Is the final commander?" 300 students turned to look at the back row. and Elena Vance knew her time for hiding was over. She sat quietly in the back row. But the galaxy knew her as the final commander. Part 3. The Legend Speaks. Elena stood up slowly. The movement was simple. She just rose from her seat in the back row. But somehow, in that moment, she seemed to change. She did not look like a tired student anymore. She looked like something else entirely. The terrorist leader pointed his weapon at her. "Come forward." Slowly. Elena walked down the center aisle. Every eye in the room followed her. The students who had ignored her for months now stared in shock. The alien giants who had mocked humans now pressed themselves back in fear. She stopped 10 feet from the terrorist leader. "You wanted to find me," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "Here I am." The terrorist laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The final commander. The ghost of Malachor. I thought you were a myth. Many people think that. They are usually wrong. You do not look dangerous. You look like a tired old woman." Elena smiled slightly. "I am tired, but I am not old. Humans age differently than your species. And as for dangerous," she tilted her head, "that depends on your definition." The terrorist leader gestured to his soldiers. "Seize her." The first guard rushed forward. He was a large Torvin, twice Elena's size. He reached for her arm, and then he stopped. He looked down at his weapon. The power indicator was dark. "Dead." "That will not work," Elena said. "I removed the power cell 3 hours ago. When you pushed me in the hallway, you should pay more attention to who you touch." The guard grabbed for his backup weapon. "It's also dead." Elena looked at the terrorist leader. "Do you have 42 soldiers? 12 of them now have non-functional weapons. I have been very busy while you were making speeches." Fear flickered across the leader's face. "You are bluffing. Test it. Order your soldiers to fire at the ceiling. See how many weapons actually work." He did not give that order. Elena began to speak. Not loudly, not with anger. Just simple words delivered with absolute certainty. "Your name is Corbax. You were born on the mining colony of Thresh 7. Your father died in the ore pits when you were 12. Your mother was killed during the corporate uprising. You joined the Void Covenant because they promised justice." Corbax stepped backward. "How do you know that? I know everything about you. I have been studying your organization for 6 months. I came to this academy because I knew you would attack it eventually. You always target places where the Galactic Council looks weak." She took a step forward. He took a step back. "I know that your second in command, the tall one by the door, does not trust you. I know that 3 of your soldiers are here only because you threatened their families. I know that your communications officer has been skimming money from your accounts." Corbax spun around to look at his soldiers. They were looking at each other with suspicion. "She is lying," shouted. "She is trying to divide us." "My," Elena asked softly. "Look at their faces. See if they believe you." The lecture hall had become very quiet. The students watched in amazement. This was not a battle. This was a surgery. Elena was cutting the terrorist group apart with nothing but words. Ithris understood now. Every hour of silence had been preparation. Every small movement had been part of a larger plan. Elena had not been hiding from the terrorists. She had been studying them, eh? Young terrorist near the back of the room suddenly dropped his weapon and walked toward the exit. Corbax screamed at him. "Where are you going?" The young man did not turn around. "You said this would be different. You said we would be heroes. This is not heroic. This is murder." He walked out the door. No one stopped him. 2 more soldiers followed. Then 3 more. Corbax pointed his weapon at Elena. His hand was shaken. "Make them stop. Make them come back." "I cannot make anyone do anything," Elena said. "I can only help them see the truth. Your soldiers joined you because they were angry. They were hurt. They wanted to change the galaxy. But this is not change. This is just pain, creating more pain." She took another step forward. Corbax did not step back this time. He had nowhere left to go. "You have 3 options," Elena said. "The first option is that you surrender now. Your soldiers walk away. The students are freed. You face justice, but you live. And if I refuse? The second option is that you continue this siege. Eventually, the galactic fleet will break through your shields. Many people will die, including you. Your cause will be destroyed. Your name will be forgotten. Korvax's weapon was aimed at her chest. His finger trembled on the trigger. The third option? Elena's eyes were steady. The third option is that you kill me. Right now, in front of 300 witnesses. And then you discover what happens when the galaxy learns that the Void Covenant murdered the final commander. She let that sink in. I ended the siege of Malachor without firing a shot. Do you know? Why? Because I convinced 10,000 soldiers that their cause was wrong. I spoke to them. I listened to them, showed them a different path, and they chose to take it. She was very close to him now. Close enough that he could not miss. Those soldiers are still alive. Many of them now work for peace. They have families. They have hope. They have futures. All because I gave them a choice instead of a bullet. Korvax's breathing was ragged. You do not understand. We have been ignored. We have been crushed. No one listens to us. I am listening, Elena said. Right now, tell me what you want. Tell me why you are really here. For a long moment, Korvax did not speak. Then slowly, his weapon began to lower. A shot rang out. One of the remaining terrorists had fired at Elena, but Ithris had seen it coming. She had thrown herself forward and knocked the shooter's arm aside. The blast went wild, hitting the ceiling. Elena did not flinch. She did not even turn around. Ithris, she said calmly. Now, Korvax, I believe you were about to make a choice. Korvax looked at her. He looked at his remaining soldiers. He looked at the students who were no longer cowering. Then he looked at his weapon. How many of my soldiers have you turned? He asked quietly. Elena answered honestly. Enough. He was silent for a long time. Then he began to laugh. It was not a cruel laugh. It was the laugh of a man who had finally seen a joke that everyone else had understood for hours. You are terrifying, he said. You don't know that. No weapons, no army, just words and patience. And you have destroyed us completely. Elena shook her head. I have destroyed nothing. I have given your soldiers a choice. I have given you a choice. What happens next is up to you. Korvax closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. Tell me about that different path, he said. The one you showed those soldiers at Malachor? Elena began to talk. The remaining terrorists sat down to listen. The siege was almost over. She sat quietly in the back row, but the galaxy knew. Her as the final commander, Part 4. Victory without blood. Elena talked for 2 hours. She did not speak about tactics or strategy. She spoke about people, about pain, about the terrible things that happen when anger has nowhere to go. The remaining terrorists listened. Some of them cried. Others stared at the floor in shame. A few argued with her, but their arguments grew weaker with each passing minute. Korvax listened most carefully of all. You speak as if you understand us, he said at one point. But you are the final commander. You are famous. You are powerful. What do you know about being ignored? Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she rolled up her sleeve. Her arm was covered in old scars, burn marks, cuts that had healed badly, the kind of wounds that come from years of suffering. When I was 19 years old, she said, my colony was attacked by raiders. They killed everyone I knew. My parents, my sister, my friends. I survived by hiding in a sewage pipe for 3 days. The room was completely silent. I wanted revenge. I wanted to burn the galaxy down. I wanted everyone to feel the pain I felt. Do you understand? I know exactly what drives you. I have felt it myself. Korvax leaned forward. Then why did you not take revenge? Because I realized something. The raiders who killed my family were angry too. They had been hurt by someone else, and that someone had been hurt by another. Pain creating more pain, going back generations. If I added my own violence to that chain, nothing would change. The cycle would just continue. She looked around the room at the terrorists and students alike. So I decided to try something different. Instead of destroying my enemies, I tried to understand them. Instead of fighting wars, I tried to end them. It was harder, much harder, but it actually worked. One of the younger terrorists spoke up. His voice was shaky. How do we go back? After everything we have done, how can we ever have normal lives? Alina smiled gently. You cannot go back. None of us can. But you can go forward. You can choose to be something different tomorrow than you were today. The conversations continued. Alina moved between groups of terrorists, speaking to each one individually. She learned their names. She learned their stories. She listened more than she talked. Outside the building, Zorath watched through security cameras. He had never seen anything like it. The siege was dissolving, not through force, but through connection. Ithris stayed close to Alina throughout. She had so many questions. Why did you hide? She finally asked during a quiet moment. With your abilities, you could lead armies. You could change the galaxy, Alina sighed. After Malachor, I became a symbol. People stopped seeing me as a person. They saw a weapon, a tool. Everyone wanted to use me for their own purposes. Politicians, generals, even people who claimed to want peace. She looked down at her hands. I came here to remember what it felt like to be nobody, to learn instead of teach, to be a student again instead of a legend. Did it work? Alina laughed softly. For a little while, until today, as the second hour ended, something remarkable had happened. Every terrorist had surrendered their weapon. They sat in small groups, talking with the students they had threatened to kill. All except Korvax. He stood alone by the window, looking out at the galactic fleet ships that waited beyond the Academy's shields. Alina approached him carefully. It is almost over, she said. Will you lower the shields? Korvax did not turn around. I have done terrible things. Not just today. Before. Many times. People have died because of my orders. Yes, I deserve to die. Alina stood beside him. Maybe. That is not for me to decide. But I know this much. Dying is easy. Living with what you have done is much harder. Running away into death is a coward's choice. Korvax flinched at the word coward. You want justice? Alina continued. Real justice. Then live face trial. Tell your story. Let the galaxy see that even people who have done terrible things can choose a different path. That will do more good than your death ever could. Korvax was quiet for a long time. Then he reached for the control panel on his wrist. The device that controlled the shields. If I lower these, he said, the galactic fleet will storm the building. My soldiers will be arrested. I will probably spend the rest of my life in prison. Probably, Alina agreed. Is it worth it? Alina considered the question carefully. When I was in that sewage pipe hiding while my family died, I made myself a promise. I promised that if I survived, I would spend my life trying to reduce the amount of suffering in the galaxy. Even a little bit, she gestured at the room behind them. Look at your soldiers. Look at the students. Right now, in this moment, there is less suffering than there was 3 hours ago. People who wanted to kill each other are now talking. People who were afraid are now hopeful. Is that worth your freedom? Korvax pressed the button. The shields fell. Within minutes, Galactic Fleet soldiers poured into the building. They expected a fight. They found terrorists and students sitting together in small groups. Having conversations, the fleet admiral was a tall Torvin named Thesan. He had led dozens of hostage rescues. He had never seen anything like this. He found Alina sitting in the back row right where she had started. Commander Vance, he said, saluting. We received your message too late to intervene. Apparently, we were not needed. Alina shook her head. You were always needed, Admiral. Just not for violence. Thesan looked around the room in wonder. No casualties. Not one? Not one. How is that possible? Alina smiled tiredly. People are not machines. They can change their minds. They can make different choices. All you have to do is give them a reason. She tried to stand up, but suddenly the world tilted sideways. Her vision blurred. Her legs refused to work properly. Zoroth appeared from nowhere and caught her before she hit the ground. Commander, he shouted. Medical team. Now. As they lowered her to the floor, her sleeve rolled back. Underneath was a wound. a deep gash from a blade crusted with dried blood. She had been injured hours ago, probably during one of her early movements through the crowd. She had hidden it. She had kept working despite the pain and blood loss. How long? Zoroth demanded. How long have you been bleeding? Elena's eyes were losing focus. Since the second hour. Could not stop. Too much to do. Admiral Thiessen was calling for medics. Students were crying. Even some of the terrorists looked horrified. Ithris knelt beside Elena. Why did you not tell anyone? Why did you hide it? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Because the mission was not finished. Because people needed me. Because ... She lost consciousness before she could finish the sentence. Zoroth looked down at the small human woman in his arms. She had stopped a siege, converted an army, and saved 300 lives. And she had done it while slowly bleeding to death. This, he said quietly, is why humans are terrifying. The medics arrived and took her away. The siege of the Galactic Military Academy was over, and the legend of the final commander had grown even larger. She sat quietly in the back row, but the galaxy knew her as the final commander. Part 5. The human Yelena woke in a white room filled with strange sounds. Medical machines beeped and hummed around her. Tubes connected her arm to bags of colored fluid. A soft bed held her body, which felt lighter than it should. 3 doctors stood nearby, speaking in hushed voices. They were different species. A Torvan, a Selvari, a Kethvari. They kept pointing at displays and shaking their heads in disbelief. She should not be alive, the Torvan doctor said. The blood loss alone should have killed her. Any other species would have collapsed within the first hour. The Kethvari doctor pulled up a scan of Elena's body. Look at this. Her cardiovascular system actually compensated. Her body redirected blood flow to essential organs. Her heart changed its rhythm to maintain pressure. That is not possible, the Selvari doctor clicked. And yet here she is. Lena cleared her throat. The doctor spun around in surprise. How long was I unconscious? She asked. 3 days, the Torvan answered. You required for transfusions. Your body nearly shut down twice, but it kept fighting. Lena nodded slowly. Can I have some water? The doctors rushed to help her, still amazed that she was awake at all. Over the next few days, visitors came constantly. Students arrived in small groups. They brought flowers and food and awkward thank you speeches. Each one carried a piece of the story. Each one had been changed by what they had witnessed. A Torvan named Cress told her that he had never respected humans before. He had thought they were weak and primitive. Now, he understood that strength came in many forms. A pair of Selvari twins explained that they were changing their career plans. Instead of becoming military officers, they wanted to study diplomacy. They wanted to learn how to solve problems without weapons. A young human boy who had been so frightened during the siege sat by her bed for an hour without speaking. Finally, he said 4 words. I want to learn. Elena told him to come back when he graduated. She would teach him herself. Ithris visited every day. She brought news and gossip from the academy. She helped Elena eat when her arms were too weak, and she asked question after question about what had happened. I still do not understand, she said one afternoon. You had no weapons, no soldiers. You were injured and outnumbered. How did you know it would work? Elena thought about the question for a long time. I did not know, she finally admitted. I hoped. I believed. But I did not know. Then why take the risk? Because the alternative was worse. I could have stayed quiet. I could have let the fleet storm the building. People would have died. Maybe many people. Instead, I tried something difficult and uncertain, and it worked. Ithris leaned forward. What if it had not worked? Elena smiled sadly. Then I would have died trying, and someone else would have had to find a different way. Zoroth came to visit on the 5th day. The old Kethvari warrior stood at attention beside her bed like a soldier reporting to a general. You saved many lives, he said. My people will remember this. I did not save anyone. The terrorists made their own choice. The students helped each other, I just gave them the opportunity. Sarath shook his head. You are wrong. I have fought in many wars. I have seen many leaders. But I have never seen anyone do what you did. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. When I was young, my people fought against humans in the border wars. We thought we understood them. We thought they were soft and emotional. We thought those things made them weak. And now? Zoroth met her eyes. Now I understand why we lost. Your emotions are not weakness. They are weapons. You feel things so deeply that you can see inside the hearts of others. You understand pain because you have felt it. You understand hope because you have needed it. He placed his fist over his heart in the traditional Kethvari salute. I thought courage meant facing death without fear. You taught me that courage means choosing not to deal death. That is harder. That is braver. Alina felt tears forming in her eyes. She had been called many things over the years. Genius, monster, legend. But this was the first time someone had truly understood. Thank you. Zorathi nodded once and left without another word. 2 weeks later, Alina was strong enough to leave the medical center. Admiral Thiessen was waiting for her with a formal delegation from the Galactic Council. Commander Vance, he announced, the Council wishes to award you the Star of Unity. It is the highest honor any being can receive. Will you accept? Alina looked at the medal in its velvet case. It was beautiful. Golden and shining with embedded jewels from a dozen worlds. No, she said. Thank you, but no. The delegation was stunned. No one had ever refused this honor. May I ask why? Admiral Thiessen managed, because I do not want to be a symbol anymore. I want to be a teacher. Alina straightened her shoulders. I would like to return to the academy. Not as a student this time. I want to create a new program. What kind of program? Alina smiled. I want to teach conflict resolution through understanding. I want to train the next generation of diplomats, negotiators, and peacemakers. I want to show them that there is another way to solve problems. The delegation exchanged looks. This was unusual. This was unprecedented, but they had also seen what Alina could do. The Council will consider your request, Admiral Thiessen said carefully. But speaking personally, I think it is a wonderful idea. 6 months later, the new program began. The classroom was small compared to the lecture halls. Only 30 students at a time. But every seat was filled. Aliens from 12 star systems sat together. Torvan warriors, Selvari engineers, Kethvari scouts, and scattered among them. More humans than had ever attended the academy before. In the back row sat a young human woman, quiet, unremarkable. Nobody special. Beside her sat Ithris. Now a junior instructor, a Torvan student in the front row, looked back at the human and laughed. Another human? What are they going to teach us? How to cry at sad stories? Ithris smiled but said nothing. Alina Vance walked to the front of the classroom. She wore a simple teacher's uniform with no medals or rank insignia. She looked tired, as always. She looked ordinary. She picked up a writing tool and wrote, one question on the display screen. What is the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy? Students shouted answers. The Devastator-class warship, the quantum bomb, the plague carriers of the Third Empire. Alina shook her head at each answer. No, she said. The most dangerous weapon in the galaxy is not a ship or a bomb. It is not a disease or a machine. She looked at each student in turn. Most dangerous weapon in the galaxy is the person who makes you put yours down. The room was silent. Name is Alina Vance. Some of you may know me as the final commander. But in this room, I am just your teacher. And I am going to show you how to win wars without fighting them. She smiled at the quiet human woman in the back row. Anyone can learn this. Anyone can become this weapon. It does not require special training or unusual abilities. It only requires patience and empathy and the courage to believe that your enemy is also a person who can change. The lesson began. And somewhere in the back row, a new legend was starting to grow. The end.